the same station 6 months later, and then the film ends.
Yes. I'm gonna talk a little about Jesse, the guy from the film. Yes, and he's from America, and he's traveling through Europe. His original plan, we hear that later in the movie, is that he was going to spend some time with his girlfriend in Madrid, but unfortunately they break up, so he decides to take a trip around Europe. Yes, he's a charming, good-looking fella, and he's, as I said, from America, and he doesn't speak any other language than English, even though he studied French for 4 years. And he has a lot of ideas of how he would like to make things. For example, a television show. And he also give us his side on how he think reincarnation isn't possible, and he's a very skeptical guy, and we see that when the fortune teller is at that table, and when they get the poem from that poem dude. So yes, and then he's a little romantic, so, and he likes Celine very much. Yes.
Then there's Celine. This well, she's the female protagonist of the story, and she's traveling from. We don't get her traveling from where she's traveling from, but she's heading to Paris, home for Paris, and in the train, Jesse speaks to her, and she opens up to him, and she's very open-minded and welcomes him, and she even gets off the train to have a date with this boy she's never even met, this stranger. So she's open-minded. Later on the date, we see this more clearly when they're at a restaurant, and she has her hand read by a gypsy fortune teller, and she believes in it, and she takes it to heart. And while Jesse is more posing to her and to the gypsy and rejects the idea, Celine is more open-minded, and as well to the poet who writes a poem with the word milkshake they chose, and where Jesse says that he probably just fitted it in somewhere, she believes that he actually wrote the poem, and she's open-minded and actually falls in love with Jesse and agrees to meet here at the day 6 months later.
Wow, super.
The main themes in the film Before Sunrise is self-fulfillment, self-discovery, and love. Jesse and Celine gets to know these personal aspects of themselves through each other and their time together in Vienna. Another important theme is spontaneity, which is the whole root in the story, because it leads to the two characters together. It leads the two characters together and make them fall in love with each other. That would never have happened if there was no spontaneity, because then Jesse would never have returned to Celine in the train and asked her if she wanted to get off the train with him and join him in Vienna, and Celine would never have said yes to. The two characters meet each other randomly. They are different places in their lives and from different countries, and still they share a past in life, exchange stories, experience and feelings, and then split their ways once again and move on with their lives after their trip in Vienna.
So I have a little bit about the setting and the symbolism. The settings are, first they're sitting in the train. After that they travel around Vienna. They get off the train and go to Vienna. And after that they split up after a long night. She jumps on the train again for Paris, and he takes a bus or walks, we don't know that, to the airport and goes home. After they agree to meet in the exact same spot after 6 months. Now the idea of symbolizing life as a travel is not a new one, but this film shows it very great. They're both traveling towards their home, but both disagrees on leaving this travel So they're both in transit. They're in this hole in their life that in which they can create whatever they want. So on their travel of life, basically they're crossing paths. They can only cross for so long before they have to separate again. And that is one of the things this movie is trying to illustrate. I think it does it very well.
I want to talk about experience I had for 1 year ago. I was on a vacation in Copenhagen. I was going to play a football match later that morning. I was going home. At that time I had to catch the next train. When I arrived at the train station and the ticket office, I was number 38 in the queue or line. And I knew I won't catch the train, and therefore I could not reach my football match. But then I spotted Skovbo, a professional football player in a local club. It's also the club I support. Further ahead in the line. I walked over to him and explained him my situation, asked him about if it would be nice to buy me a ticket, and he was nice. I knew that he also was late because his team, the team I support, Odense Boldklub, was going to play at the same time as mine match. But he bought me a ticket, and then we wished each other luck with our respective matches. And then we ran to the platform together. I know this day to day that it was a very important meeting because if I hadn't met Morten Skovbo that morning, I wouldn't have catched my football match.